Hello, and welcome to the KCSA Mental Health Virtual Investor Conference. My name is Allison Sauce, and on behalf of KCSA Strategic Communications, as well as our co-host, the OTC Markets Group, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Filament Health. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Filament Health, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You will be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Ben Lightburn, CEO and co-founder of Filament Health Corp, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol FLHLF, and on the NEO under the symbol FH. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Filament Health is a naturally focused psychedelic drug development company, and we have a few highlights here for you. So I can manipulate the thing. We are the first and still only company to actually have naturally derived drug candidates in FDA-approved clinical trial. We have a industry-leading IP portfolio covering various aspects of those drug candidates. We have in-house manufacturing with a Health Canada dealer's license and a GMP facility, as well as several revenue-generating licensing agreements enabled by both the facility and the IP portfolio. We have a lot of experience in botanical extraction manufacturing. We have a management team that previously worked together in a company that recently sold. And we have a drug discovery program, which is unlocking the healing potential of hundreds of different psychoactive species. We all know that the mental health crisis is one of the most urgent crises facing society today. It's said that 1 in 5 North Americans will experience a serious mental health episode by the age of 40. There are over 250 million people suffering from depression worldwide. Existing treatments are ineffective, slow, and come with unwanted side effects, and we really haven't seen much iteration in the field for dozens of years. It's time for a new class of medicines, and psychedelics are showing great promise in this area. And when we think about pharmaceutical development, over history, in fact, pharmaceuticals and natural sources have actually always been closely linked together. Humans have always turned to the natural world around them in order to find herbs, shrubs, plants, fungi, which cure diseases, which increase flavor of their foods, preservation, or just for recreational purposes. And that carries forward into the modern world. As it turns out, over 40% of all modern pharmaceuticals have some kind of natural or botanical origin. This represents over 40 billion of annual revenue of natural or botanically sourced drugs. In fact, the largest selling cancer drug of all time, compound called paclitaxel, is actually a natural extract from the inner bark of the yew tree. And we think it's important to apply that same historical lens to the psychedelics industry. Up until now, in fact, all research on psychedelics has been done with synthetically manufactured substances. And while there's nothing wrong with making a substance through chemical synthesis, we believe that the natural route carries with it many advantages, which I'll get into in this presentation. These are compounds that have been known by humans for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they have a documented history of safety and efficacy that we can actually leverage if we stick to the natural substances. In addition, if we make a natural extract, we're actually extracting much more than just the primary metabolite. Psilocybin from the magic mushroom, for instance, is just one of many active metabolites within the magic mushroom. So our products actually are carefully constructed to contain not just psilocybin, but also psilocin, baeocystin, norbaeocystin, all in the same ratio and concentration as if you were to consume it from the magic mushroom itself. This allows us to leverage something called the FDA Botanical Drug Pathway. Essentially what it allows you to do is skip preclinical and early clinical work and go right into certain clinical populations without having the laborious and expensive preclinical stage. We like to say that psychedelics are much more than just magic mushrooms, and magic mushrooms contain much more than just psilocybin. It's important to actually make a natural extract containing all of these secondary metabolites so that we can gain an understanding of something called the entourage effect. The entourage effect is the idea that multiple compounds from a product can work together synergistically to enhance the therapeutic effect of the product. We're very proud to have achieved the very first botanical drug candidates that have been studied in an FDA-approved clinical trial. These are PEX-010, PEX-020, and 030. These are all extracts from the magic mushroom. PEX-010 is a 25 milligram standardized dose of psilocybin, where PEX-020 and 030 are oral and sublingual formulations standardized in psilocin. When I say psilocybin and psilocin, this is the content to which it's standardized to. But it's important to keep in mind that just because it's standardized in psilocybin doesn't mean that all the other active metabolites are excluded. So when I say psilocybin, it also contains a bit of psilocin and baeocystin and all of these other things. That's what makes these drug compounds very unique and also extremely difficult to replicate, especially if the manufacturing methods are trade secrets and further than that, actually patented. Our next class of drug compounds are based on ayahuasca. We have AEX-010, which is actually a combination of DMT plus the monoamine oxidase inhibitors, and AEX-020, which is just the monoamine oxidase inhibitors on its own. I mentioned we have a drug candidate standardized in psilocin. I want to spend a minute talking about why this is important. Psilocin is actually the active form of psilocybin. Contrary to popular belief, psilocybin is not actually active in the human body. It must convert into psilocin before becoming a serotonin analog and causing the hallucinogenic and therapeutic effects. But because psilocybin and psilocin are unstable, especially psilocin when manufactured synthetically, all research up till now has actually been done with synthetic psilocybin. But because we manufacture naturally, we were able to come up with a method to extract and standardize psilocin and get it into an oral delivery format. In addition to this, we've actually been able to get the FDA to approve administering it directly into humans. Our first clinical trial is actually looking at the effects of psilocybin versus psilocin. Why? Well, by avoiding this conversion, we think we can reduce the onset time because we don't have to wait for the conversion to take place. We think we can have fewer gastrointestinal side effects because this conversion is thought to occur in the gut and could be what causes some of the stomach upset commonly associated with psilocybin use. But perhaps most importantly, we're looking for a more consistent effect. It's well known that a single or a given oral dose of psilocybin produces highly variable effects. And we hypothesize that this variability is due to the fact that different people metabolize the psilocybin into psilocin at different rates, leading to a different amount of psilocin in their blood, leading to, again, different amounts of hallucinogenic and therapeutic effects. Our hypothesis is that by administering psilocin directly, we can reduce this variability and improve overall patient outcomes. As I mentioned, the trial investigating PEX-010 and PEX-020, 030, this is the very first trial to administer naturally derived psychedelic drug candidates in an FDA-approved clinical trial, as well as the first to directly administer psilocin rather than the prodrug psilocybin. I touched on our trial, which is the first element of our internal drug development strategy. This is really to investigate the benefits of psilocin relative to psilocybin. Based on these results, we plan to advance psilocin into a phase 2 trial in the next few months. All of our trials are being run our internal trials are being run at University of California, San Francisco. The principal investigator is Dr. Joshua Woolley, a highly experienced psychedelic researcher leading one of the leading research groups in psychedelics globally. And we're very proud of our partnership with UCSF. One of the things that came to be once we announced our first clinical trial is we had a large amount of people reaching out to us, other drug development psychedelic companies reaching out to us to inquire whether they could use our drug in their clinical development program. And naturally, we said yes for a fee. So what this has turned into is an active licensing program whereby Filament can generate revenue during the development phases, as well as royalties once these drugs get approved. We've signed a total of 6, I believe, licensing agreements to date for a variety of different indications and geographies with different companies. And in fact, just this morning, we announced an expanded commercial royalty agreement with Science Group. Science is focused on palliative care, and they have negotiated with Filament a license to commercialize PEX 010 25 milligrams, which is our psilocybin candidate, for the indication of palliative care. Their license is exclusive in the UK, US, and EU. Over the course of their development and approval, Filament can earn up to $3 million worth of milestone fees, and upon commercialization, Science will owe a royalty in the low double digits of net sales. So this is one example of the licensing deals that we are actively negotiating and hope to announce more in the near future. In addition to licensing to commercial parties, we have an active program whereby we provide psilocybin to research, academic and nonprofit researchers. As it turns out, there is a significant shortage of GMP psilocybin in the world, and many researchers have been reaching out to us, again, requesting access to our drug for their clinical trials. They may or may not be interested in the fact that it's unique and natural and all these other things. Really, what's most important to them is that their study can proceed. We feel it's very important to, in effect, give back to the community by providing them not just with the study drugs and the capsules and the placebos, but also the regulatory support needed to get these kinds of trials up and running. Because of this partnership program, we've got clinical trial approvals in Canada, America, the United Kingdom, Belgium, Denmark. So we're building quite a good experience in what it takes to get a psychedelic clinical trial up and running in a variety of jurisdictions. In most of these cases, the researchers are willing to provide Filament a license for the rights to the efficacy data, and in all cases, Filament receives the safety package in order to build our own safety library, which also increases the attractiveness of the drug candidates for the commercial licensing agreements. In addition, as you can see, some of these researchers are studying some quite unique indications. So Filament gets to see whether or not its drugs are active in indications such as, for instance, coma, which we would never study on our own. So we're, again, very, very proud of this academic partnership program. In addition, I should mention that Filament is busy providing psilocybin through the Special Access Program. This is a program in Canada whereby patients can request access to experimental therapies on an emergency basis if they are suffering from a serious or life-threatening condition. Earlier this year, in the beginning of 2022, Health Canada allowed psilocybin and MDMA to be applied for via this program. And since then, Filament has received probably 50 or 60 approvals to administer psilocybin via this program. What's very interesting about this is Filament is actually busy building relationships with doctors all across the countries and getting a lot of excellent feedback on how the drug actually acts in the real world, in the clinic, with a group of seriously ill patients. All of this licensing that I mentioned, especially the commercial licensing, is really only possible because of our intellectual property portfolio. If we were making generic synthetic psilocybin, there really wouldn't be anything to license. It would simply just be a manufacturing and supply agreement. Because nobody's actually made pharmaceutical grade natural extracts into pharmaceutical grade drug candidates, that's allowed us a large white space of IP to go and protect all the technologies that we've developed in this regard. These cover various steps of our manufacturing process: extraction, purification, standardization, stabilization, and the compositions of matter for the human deliverable forms. We have, I think, 10 patents issued now in various families, and more to come. But what's more important than our issued and published patents is actually the trade secrets. We have specific strains of mushrooms. We have specific growing methods that we use, extraction methods that aren't necessarily publicly disclosed. All of this makes it very, very hard for anybody else to replicate our drug candidates. They would have to have the trade secret manufacturing process as well as a license to the patented IP, because each step in the process can actually affect the final composition of the drug product. Our drug products are highly complex mixtures, so varying the growing temperature or the extraction solvent, all of this can have a direct impact on the final composition and therefore cause it to change and therefore cause it to be a different product. One of the other reasons besides the IP and the manufacturing is that we believe that naturally extracted psychedelics are the best route for widespread adoption, not just in the pharmaceutical market, but in any non-pharmaceutical markets that appear. We're seeing in the next few weeks, we'll see Oregon State begin its state legalized psilocybin market. And in that market, in fact, synthetic psilocybin has been prohibited, and only natural mushrooms as well as extracts of mushrooms will be permitted. So we're very excited about participating in that market via licensing agreements to local Oregon companies. Similarly, in Colorado, just recently passed a ballot measure which calls for a legalized psychedelics market beginning in a few years. We think that in all of these markets, natural will be the strongly preferred option, and in some cases, the only available option. And any of the technology that we've developed to make pharmaceutical grade, FDA grade psychedelic drug candidates is obviously also very applicable for these state level markets. These state level markets are very interesting because they will have a much lower cost of distribution and administration, because by and large, you will not have doctors. It will, especially in Oregon, it is not a medical market. The people that receive the psilocybin are called clients, and the person that gives it is called a facilitator, and it's all done at a service center. They've been very clear to underline the fact that this is not a medical market. And again, we believe that in any non-medical market, that natural will be the vastly preferred option. A quick note about our facility. It's in the Metro Vancouver area, Burnaby, BC, owned by our wholly owned subsidiary, Silo Scientific. It's 3,500 square feet, GMP inspected facility. It's where we grow the mushrooms, do the experiments, carry out different extractions, things like that. And also really having all of this in-house, we think gives us a unique differentiation compared to most, if not all, other psychedelic companies. It's what allows us to iterate on new products quickly and provide essentially good customer service to all of these different clinical trial sites, both academic, commercial, as well as shipping via the SAP. All of this is made possible by having our manufacturing in-house. Our current production capacity is over 2,000 high doses of psilocybin per month, which is obviously more than enough to supply every single clinical trial in the world. So we plan to keep our capacity relatively small at this time, but we are already working on out-licensing our manufacturing process to establish large-scale drug manufacturers for when and if the time comes that the market expands significantly. A quick note on team. The first 5 people on the top row that you see there, we're all colleagues that previously worked together at a company called Matza Innovation. Matza was a botanical extraction company which commercialized a novel subcritical water extraction technology for the cosmetics, dietary supplement, and pharmaceutical industry. We sold that company in 2018 for $26 million. And Filament was really this same team getting back together again. I like to say that we're the Grateful Dead circa 1999. But all joking aside, I think that in the nascent psychedelics industry, there's a real advantage to companies that already have a team, an established history, chemistry. We've already been through an exit together. So we all have roles and responsibilities, and we're all very comfortable working with each other. To that core team, we've added obviously a lot of experience in intellectual property, in FDA regulatory development, finance, and communications. We have there Josh Woolley and Jeff Chilton, two advisors. Jeff Chilton is the president of Namex, North American Mushroom Extracts. They are a world-leading medicinal mushroom extract company who we were fortunate enough to receive an investment from over the summertime. Similarly, with the board, we have a lot of experience in capital markets, in IP and licensing, and corporate governance. The most recent addition to the board is Kostya Adamski, who is Negev Capital's representative. We were also fortunate enough to receive an investment from Negev over the summer. And with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you for your time, and we will be taking questions. I'll just go back to the beginning slide here. So I have a question that says, who are your main competitors? That's a very interesting question. As it pertains to natural, we did actually see a number of companies focused on natural over the last year or two. Some come to mind: Midocin, Haven, Numinous, even Science, who is currently our licensing partner. Some of these companies are in various stages of progress. Optimize, another one, various stages of progress or not in some cases. To our knowledge, none of them have actually developed a natural drug candidate that has met with approval from any health authority to be studied in a human clinical trial. We often hear of other companies that are embarking on a natural extraction strategy for psychedelics. And like I said, we are still unaware of anyone that's actually been successful in creating a pharmaceutical grade natural extract. As it turns out, it's actually relatively challenging to do this, especially with some of the more unstable compounds like psilocin, which is why I think you haven't seen any natural extracts up until now. Contrast with, for example, cannabinoids, right? Where you have a blockbuster drug, Epidiolex, which is actually a natural extract standardized in CBD from the plant. In terms of kind of like broader manufacturing, there are dedicated manufacturers like Cygen, and then all of your typical pharmaceutical CDMOs, which are very capable of making synthetic psychedelics, but none of them produce natural products like ours, and they are all single compound preparations which have been created through synthesis. The manufacturing methods for synthetic psilocybin have been known for decades and decades. They're actually patented by Albert Hofmann back in the 60s. So there's really not a lot of IP left for classical psychedelics made synthetically, which is why we're so excited about our natural approach. We get to leverage the advantages of the Gen 1 compounds, which are that they're already known to be safe and in certain cases effective, but we've also made them with a significant amount of IP. So that's really the main downside, is that most companies don't have any real IP when it comes to synthetic psilocybin. So that's one of the main reasons why we're so excited about our strategy. Another question, do we have composition of matter patents on the combinations of these minor tryptamines found in the magic mushrooms? That is a very good question. It's not possible to patent a naturally occurring thing of nature. And that would extend to a natural composition of these different tryptamines. So the short answer is no, but the long answer is that our final formulation contains much more than the tryptamines. There are various excipients and stabilizers and preservatives, and the whole entourage of all of those things is possible to patent in a formulation. So while we don't patent like the ratio of psilocybin to psilocin because it's the same as what occurs in nature, we do patent the extract plus all the other things that renders it shelf stable and into a human deliverable form. That was a good question. Thank you. Another question here. Can you discuss the significance of your announcement today with science and the revenue potential? I'm glad people out there are reading our news releases. Science is a company focused on palliative care, and we've had a relationship with them for probably 6 months to a year now. Recently, we expanded an existing licensing agreement, which was non-commercial. We expanded that into a commercial agreement, and that was announced today. The terms of the agreement that have been announced are that Science receives worldwide commercialization rights for our PEX 10 25 milligram capsule, psilocybin, within the field of palliative care for anxiety and depression. That commercialization right is exclusive in the EU, the United States, and the UK, and non-exclusive in the rest of the world. Science will pay Filament various development milestones related to their clinical progression and drug approvals, totaling up to 3 million Canadian dollars. And once the drug is in commercial sales, Science will owe Filament 10% of net sale, 10% of net sales. So all in all, we're very excited about this deal because for one thing, it's a great partnership between two companies, and Filament will receive development milestones and near-term revenue, as well as long-term royalty payments. Here's another good question. Did Filament discover the entourage effect in mushrooms? So the entourage effect is a very interesting question. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that people report that different mushrooms have different kinds of effects. And if that's true, it's probably because different mushrooms contain different amounts of the various active constituents. Up till now, all clinical research has been done with single compound synthetic psilocybin. And with a product like that, it's actually impossible to see whether there is an entourage effect because you only have psilocybin in the composition. So the entourage effect is actually one of the things that we hope to demonstrate and prove with pharmaceutical grade research. But until now, ours are the only products that actually contain the secondary metabolites. So the first step was actually to create products like ours, which contain the secondary metabolites, which can be studied in clinical studies. So we haven't yet done a comparative study of the natural versus synthetic, and that would be where you could potentially prove the entourage effect. Or you could have different products extracted from different mushrooms, which might contain different amounts of the active metabolites, and compare one to the other for their efficacy in various indications. This is one of the things why we're so excited about our IP platform of patented technology. It allows us to rapidly iterate new drug candidates from all kinds of psychedelic species, not just magic mushrooms, but others as well. Another question here, are there any new indications that you are looking for AEX10? Any new indications for PEX 010? Great question. We do have a hypothesis that our ayahuasca-based product, which is AEX10, may show better efficacy in PTSD and substance use disorders. This has to do a lot with anecdotal reporting of obviously people going to Peru or experiencing ayahuasca journeys in various jurisdictions around the world. And we think it could have something to do with the specific unique combination of the MAOIs plus the DMT. For PEX10, we are actually constantly evaluating all new indications. We haven't actually announced any change from depression, but there are several that are on our radar. I see there's a few more questions that I unfortunately don't have the time to get to, but I would like to thank everyone for their questions and for listening in. We're easy to reach. Thank you very much.